Hey everyone, I'm Mecca here, and I'm really excited to bring to you today Jon Vroman from the Front Row Foundation. And me and Jon, we go way, way, way back to early days. But Jon does something so unique, so impactful for so many people out there. And what that is people who are braving a life-threatening illness, regardless of age. Jon provides their dream front row experience, whether that's an event, a sporting event, a concert, whatever it is, and gives them a day that will last a lifetime. So I'm really excited about bringing Jon to the channel. So that is coming up right now. Hey, Jon, welcome to the channel, my friends. Great to have you here.
Dude, this is not ready to have some fun.
I'm excited, bud. I'm excited. All right. So let's get right into it, man.
Let's not waste any time.
Let's not waste any time. Let's because you know what? I understand the concept of living your life in the front row and seizing every single moment. And I think I experience that more and more every single day with my daughter and my soon-to-be son and Mariana. But I don't think enough people experience that day to day yet. So can we start with your story and how you came to find the, or what's it, came to fund? No. How you founded.
Yeah, that's good.
Founded
that works.
the Front Row Foundation.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you the short story, and then
Cool.
You can tell me if you want to expand on any of this. But the short story is, and it's actually, it starts with a great question, which is, how do you feel about how you're contributing to the world? Right? Mm-hmm. And that was a question that somebody had asked me, and I just didn't like my answer. I didn't like the feeling inside knowing that I wasn't giving my best to the world. I wasn't contributing in a way that I would get to the end of my life, look back and say, I'm really proud of that. Right. I was doing a good job of taking care of myself, but I wasn't necessarily taking care of others in a way that I was proud of. So the story goes that I was at a Jason Mraz concert, and I was in the back row. And I remember looking down to the front, and I saw people were having this incredibly wonderful experience, throwing their hands up in the air and dancing and singing and completely engaged in the moment. They looked like they wanted to be nowhere other than there. And then there were people in the back who looked like they wanted to be anywhere other than right there. Right. And I noticed, same event, drastically different experiences from the crowd. So this seed was kind of rattling around in my head. And then a buddy of mine and I were on a run one day, just a jog around the lake, and talking about contributing to the world, how we wanted to do that. And we started exploring what were our fears and our loves, because we thought that there could be real power pulled from those places of what did you not want in your life and what do you want in your life. That would probably be able to fuel some type of contribution to the planet, because using what moves us to move others is very powerful. And so that's what we did. My greatest fear was getting to the end of my life and saying, I wish I would have made more of my time. I wish I would have had more epic experiences. And then I thought, well, one of my greatest loves are all those experiences, the moments that we tell the stories about. Mm-hmm. So then I turned to my buddy and I said, well, what if we started a charity where we helped people who had a life-threatening illness, whose timeline may be, arguably cut short. Mm-hmm. And then we help them have the best day ever. And then from there, we can help them live every day in the front row. And because we thought that metaphor of being in the front row was very powerful, the metaphor of getting close to what lights you up, the people, the places, the passions that make you come alive. And in that statement right there, I went home and I wrote the mission statement of the Front Row Foundation. That was 12 years ago. And since then, we've raised millions of dollars and helped many, many people to have the best day of their life at the live event of their dreams. We've done sporting events and concerts and all sorts of different theatrical performances, Broadway and whatnot. And now we look back and we as you know, we wrote a book about it because you helped me get it out there to the world.
Yeah. We'll have a link to that book right below for sure.
So, dude, that's it. And for the past decade plus, we've been creating these events with a community, a relatively small community of people who want to help other people to be moment makers and to make the most of our time. That's really what this is all about.
You say moment makers. What do you mean by that? What is a moment maker?
So I think there's two ways that you could have a moment. One is to just let it pass and sort of be numb and unaware of the moment. um, be feeling like a victim in the moment,
Mhm.
right? There is a moment that's happening to you, or there's a moment that might be happening for you.
Right.
And the moment that for us, that when we say a moment maker, that's the maker part is the intentionality behind it. It's the person that says, I might not be able to control what happens to me, but I can control how I deal with it. I can't control that it starts pouring down rain at the live concert of my dreams,
Right.
but I can control whether or not I dance in the rain or I complain about the rain.
Yeah.
And so a moment maker is the type of person that takes anything that's around them and makes the most of that situation. So our guiding question in the charity, and this is a
Yeah.
question that I think anybody can take and use in their lives, in business, in their family lives, and basically anywhere where a human is having an interaction with the world, at large,
Yeah.
is how can I consciously create, experience, or celebrate the meaningful moments of life? How can I consciously create, experience, or celebrate the meaningful moments of life? And what that means to me is that's somebody that the creating part is the part we control,
Yeah.
right? I set out the balloons for that person. I planned their surprise party and I created this moment.
Mhm.
The other one is sometimes you're at the surprise party. So you're
Right.
somebody that's there, you're experiencing the surprise that somebody else put together. And sometimes you're the one that brings it up a year later that says, remember when we had that surprise party? And everybody's like, yeah. And you relive it all over again. So that's the celebration piece. So there's a little bit of the future of what we can create down the road, what we're looking forward to, what's happening in the moment that we're sort of just witness to. And then there's
Mhm.
also the celebration piece, which is looking back and bringing the power of what happened back into the present moment.
I just love that. And you know what comes to mind is just being in the moment. For example, right now we're having a chance to sit down and talk, and we're good friends. We've had some incredible moments hiking. Is it Blue Mountain, or when we
You
did
might
that?
know better than I. I
That
remember the experience, not the name of the mountain.
right. Okay. But you remember that hike we
Hmm.
did up the mountain, and then we went on the lake later. And
Yeah.
but being in the moment, right? And I'm guilty of this too. And my wife's always trying to remind me, it's like, Mecca, be here, be focused. But right now, for example, we're filming this interview. I'm just in the moment, having a chance to talk to one of my great friends and just hear you and your passion for what you do all over again.
Yeah.
So that's really cool, man. That's really cool. So let's talk about what the Front Row Foundation does at its core, like some of the experiences that people have gone through and what you've learned over the last 12 years, about everything, about people fighting a life-threatening illness, and really what happens to them afterwards.
Yeah. Well, I love the question because it's really at the heart of what we do. And the best way is to tell you a story. So the story is of a little girl who was about 4 years old and was living outside of Philadelphia. We had a mutual friend. So a friend of mine knew of this little girl, came
Mhm.
to me and said, hey, I know you just started this charity. And we had been at it for a little over a year. He said, this little girl, man, she is a big Kelly Clarkson fan and she is battling a very serious brain tumor right now. Is there
Mhm.
anything we can do? And when I got to know this little girl, I found out she was a real fan. She knew the words to the songs. Her mom wouldn't play Kelly Clarkson in the car, she would cry. So this little girl was really lit up by Kelly's music. And our team got together and we decided that we were going to create this event. And in fact, as I tell the picture, I should mention that I'm looking at a picture of Sophie right next to me on my wall. Sits
No.
2 feet away from me. And
Awesome.
it reminds me each day of why we do what we do. And here's why we do what we do. So this little girl is really battling at the time that we take her to the event. She's suffering severe migraines. She's had multiple surgeries. She's in and out of the hospital constantly. And she is fighting for her life. Well, this day that we get a chance to do for Sophie starts with a limousine pulling up to her house, red carpet, sparkling cider. She was dressed in this little purple dress. Her
Really.
mom said she looked like a princess. We took her from there to the Rainforest Cafe where the animals come alive and there's a
Totally.
thunderstorm in the middle of the restaurant. They even brought in special food for Sophie to to help her with her diet that she was on because she had to have special food. And then from there, we're off to the concert. Now, at this point, Kelly Clarkson knew that we were coming because we had reached out to her thanks to our good friends. You know, it's amazing in this organization how many doors open up. When
Right.
people know the work that you do, they're like, I have a friend, you should meet this person. We can open up this door. And
That's
our
awesome.
friend, Jon Vroman, of the, you know, who's a author of Giftology and a very
Yes.
connected individual, one of our founding members, board member, he reached out to a guy named Paul. Paul got us connected to Kelly's team. So Kelly knew about this. So Sophie walks in a little late because she had been suffering these debilitating migraines that day.
Yeah.
And she walked in with her mom, and Kelly saw them enter the room, right? It's a fairly small venue in Atlantic City that this took place at. And she pointed at Sophie. And so that was a magic moment, you know, number one with Kelly.
Wow.
And so they went about the concert. It had a great time. Sophie was exhausted because, again, she's fighting for her life at this point. She's there. She's with her mom. She's in her arms. She falls asleep because she thinks it's the end of the show. But what she doesn't know is we got her backstage. So her mom carries her backstage totally asleep in her mother's arms. And then Kelly walks into the room a little bit later, and Sophie just kind of perks up when she knows that she's there, and they lock eyes. And then Kelly proceeds to like pick Sophie up and hold her in her arms. And I have that picture hanging on my desk. And the reason I have that picture hanging on my desk, and one of the reasons that that picture is so powerful for me, is that that was one of the last days out that Sophie was able to experience, because just about 8 weeks after that event and that photo was taken, Sophie lost her life to the brain tumor. And we were all obviously crushed by that news, and it was very sad. You know, that's the understatement. The joy of that day, however, still is celebrated with her family. And I remember her mom saying that one of her greatest fears was that people would forget about Sophie. And you know, that was the moment that our charity decided that we would celebrate anniversaries of our recipients every year forever. And that's something that we've done for the last 12 years, is every year on the anniversary of their front row celebration, we celebrate, whether they are here with us in person or in spirit, we celebrate that event. And one last piece to this, which I think is a testament to the work that's done with the front row team, is that two of our event coordinators at the time, John and Mara Berghoff, who are now married, they took Sophie on her event. They were the hosts. So
Really?
we have staff that goes on every event, two people on every event, to take pictures and make sure everything, video, and make sure that everything is done perfectly for the family, so they don't have a thing to worry about. And because documenting the event is one of the most important things, right? The photo book and the videos that we do, and all those are available at the website, you know, for people to look at. We can tell everybody where to go later. But, you know, the thing is that John and Mara told me something that absolutely moved me to tears when I found this out. That is that they were invited to go to the funeral for Sophie. And when they walked up to the casket, they saw Sophie laying there in her white dress. And they were shocked to see that on Sophie was her VIP Kelly Clarkson badge.
Oh my God.
So, you know, that really, for me, solidified why we do the work that we do. And to this day, I am very good friends with Sophie's mom, Lauren. In fact, I just spoke with her weeks ago. So this is more than a decade later. We've become great friends with the family over the years, and we've continued to celebrate Sophie's life. And that's what we do. And that's why we do it. We want to honor people and give them an amazing moment that they can hang on to.
That's incredible, man. That's incredible. It's, you know, I've heard that story before. I don't think I've known all those details though. And I definitely haven't heard you tell me that story now that I have a daughter who's, you know, so that's special. That is, especially the funeral part with the badge, that says the impact that, that these events really can have on not just the recipient, but the family, their friends. That's, wow.
And
What? Yeah,
one
go
thing I'll
ahead.
add to that, Mecca, is that, one of the reasons I think that hits us all. There's a
Hmm.
number of reasons that that hits us, but one is this knowing that, we all know this, that there's an
Hmm.
end for
Right.
everybody. And that reality, that one day we will face death, is something that we hope in our community inspires us to live more now with the time that we have.
Yeah.
Because when we start to think that we have just unlimited time, that we can take our moments for granted, that we'll always have another moment to say, I love you, or I'm sorry, or yes, right? Or
Hmm.
even no. But, to really be owners of our moments in our lives. And again, not to say that, guys, sometimes some of you out there listening are going through some really rough times right now. And I'm not trying to make it sound easy to have amazingly positive experiences in life, because sometimes you're dealt hands that are very difficult to
Hmm.
deal with, right? Challenges that come your way that they're tragedies, right? And
Hmm.
so it's very difficult to find the silver lining in moments like that. But we really are faced, all of us, with different seasons in life, and
Hmm.
our opportunity in each of those seasons to make the most of our time. That's our goal, with respect to the challenges that everybody faces, just to do what we can with what we have.
Love it, man. Let me ask you a question. Let's shift gears a little bit. What does living life in the front row mean? And then how can we do that every single day?
Yeah. So, so that's a good question. So, living life in the front row for us means consciously creating, experiencing, and celebrating the meaningful moments of life. It's living life in the front row is about taking ordinary moments and making them extraordinary. Living life in the front row is
Mhm.
about turning now into wow, right?
Yeah.
That's what living life in the front row is all about. Our community, when we asked them in an event, we had a live event, and we asked them, everybody, to look back at moments in their life that really made them come alive.
Hmm.
Highlight moments that we call front row moments, right? These special moments in life. And we said, what was at play there? What was happening? And there were really a few qualities of a moment that our team came up with. So one is that somebody was fully present in that moment. They were completely
Hmm.
engaged and present in the moment. Number two is that there was maybe some act of courage in that moment, that they might have stepped up and said yes to something that was courageous.
Hmm.
There was a moment of community in that time, a time when they were connecting with others. And there was a time of transformation, maybe like somebody changed or grew or evolved in that moment. That nobody was ever the same after that moment type
Right.
of transformation. And how that relates to everybody here. Let's take a business owner as an example. If you want to attract and retain customers, I believe you have to become a moment maker, right?
Hmm.
There's so much research out there about how brand loyalty, right? People that are raving fans of companies
Hmm.
are raving fans because that company does things that makes them a moment maker, and people want to be a part of that. They recognize that. So Zappos sending special gifts because their customer service team is empowered to do so. The Ritz Carlton, who famously, like, do you ever hear about this one with the kid who left the stuffed animal, and the Ritz Carlton decided not just to return the stuffed animal to the boy, but the Ritz Carlton, like, took the stuffed animal all around the hotel and had him doing poses with all the staff, and, like, had him laying by the
Wow.
pool and put a drink in his hand, like, and then sent the little boy the stuffed animal with the photo book,
With the
right?
photo book.
There's an opportunity for a company to be a moment maker, right? We all have an opportunity every day to be a moment maker in everything that we do. I'll give you a great example. So one of my new friends, and I say new, in the last year I met him and become a big fan. You probably know the name, Jay Papasan. He
Mhm.
wrote the book The One Thing,
Yep.
and he's responsible for he's sold millions
Millions.
millions of books. The books that he is co-published, have sold 8 million copies. For put this in perspective of just how many copies of books he's sold. Well, Jay is a busy guy, right?
Yeah.
He's the VP he's a VP over at Keller Williams, or I
Yes.
forget his title, right? But he's a busy guy. Let's put it that way. And I recently had the opportunity to share the stage with him at a TEDx event. And he spoke at one of my dad's retreats, but at the end of the retreat, he sent me a note, a handwritten card, and said, "Hey, Jon, I want to thank you for the opportunity to serve your men at the dad's retreat." Now, I should be sending him a thank you card for speaking at my dad's retreat,
Yeah.
right? Then I travel with him for this TEDx event, and he sends me a card when we get back, and he's like, "Hey, man, I want to thank you for just being the best travel partner at this event.
Wow.
You're calming energy, you're fun. Like, it was just really great to travel with you. Right? Thanks for being a moment maker, basically, right?"
Hmm.
And yet he's being a moment maker because of that. Or another example is like my friend John Israel, who did an entire year of 5 thank you cards a day
Right.
for an entire year. He has a project called the Mr. Thank You Project. And there's easy ways for people to be moment makers, right? But you think about this. You think about how intentional that is, how little that might be. But a moment maker is somebody that shines the light. So here's the example that I like to use with living life in the front row. See, living life in the front row doesn't have to be about you being the center of attention. We like to talk about, and I think it's very valid, by the way, the argument of like, I don't want to be on the sidelines in life. I want to get in the game. I want to
Hmm.
play the game. I'm like, okay, I understand that. I'm not out to bash that concept. What I don't want to underestimate, though, is what it's like to be on the sideline cheering someone on. Like, don't bash that. Now, if I get the intention behind it, right? What
Hmm.
they're saying is step up in life. And I'm
Right.
saying, you don't always have to be the hero. You don't always have to be on stage. You don't always have to be the player, the star player, to be involved.
Right.
A raving fan. Here's something we say. This is something we believe in our charity. The best fans get the best show. You are a participant. It's just different. It's a different form of participation at times. But living life in the front row is one of service. It's one of giving. It's one of making somebody else feel amazing. Jay writes me a thank you card. That makes me feel amazing. He shined the light. He was the fan in that moment, right? And
Right.
I should be the fan, arguably, in that moment, right? But that's living life in the front row. So people can go out there, they can do it in any simple way. Like, I think ordering a coffee at your local coffee shop and
Yeah.
asking the person behind the counter, "What are you grateful for today?" is a great way to have a front row moment, because when you ask a question, people can't help but figure out the answer.
Hmm.
And what that does is it allows them to shine the light on something good in their life. And we know there's good science that backs up the focus of our attention and how it makes us feel and the chemicals that are released. And I
Hmm.
believe that we start to change the world with questions like that, with bringing attention and awareness in certain ways. And that's what living life in the front row is, man. It is truly choosing to engage in life in a very powerful and present way.
I love that, man. I love that. I just absolutely love that. One thing that really stood out was just making other people feel special,
Yeah,
right?
that's
Just
it.
just make other people feel special. And it's just a big circle. It'll
We
all come back.
we talk about one of the acronyms that we use in the charity is lift, right? So
Hmm.
one way to be a moment maker is you listen deeply. That's the L, and listening deeply is just it by itself is a moment maker, action. If you really listen to somebody, they'll tell you that was one of the greatest conversations they've ever had. And
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
you can't know what to get somebody for their birthday or
Right.
Christmas or whatever holiday if you don't listen to what they care about.
Hmm.
Right. So listen deeply. Jon Vroman's excellent at that. Right. That's what he
Hmm.
does. If he's going to be a gift giver, he's got to listen deeply first. Right.
Hmm.
The next one is to include others. That most of our front row moments, not all of them, but most of them are when we include other people in it. So if you want to have a party for somebody and you include a bunch of other people in the surprise, you've now amplified the moment because you simply involved people. So you ask the question, are you an inclusive person? Do you allow people to get involved with what you're doing? That's a way to expand the moment. the next part of it is you have the front row moment. So once you include people, you create the moment, you do the thing, you take the action, right? You have the party, you do whatever it is. And then the last part of moment making is to have thanks and gratitude, which means that to look back on that moment and be appreciative of it. So when you lift up a situation, you listen deeply, you include people, you create the moment that you're after, and then you have thanks and gratitude. And that is a way to be a moment maker in every day of your life. And I think that if you sat down and just said, how can I do that today? How can I listen to the world around me? How can I listen to my customers? How can I listen to my wife or my husband? How can I include people in this journey? Whether that be, by the way, just dinners with friends, or you include somebody that's a teacher or an expert into your community, to whatever it might be. There's lots of ways to argue all the points of it. And then the front row moment is just a way of saying, do the thing, right? Make it happen. Like, make the moment special, whatever it might be. Take somebody on that special event that you've been wanting to take them on, and then express gratitude and thanks.
I love that, man. I love that. All right. So one last question, Jon, is what can we do today to help other people also start living their life in the front row?
I think one of the best ways is to do it yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you start the standing ovation, you'll encourage others to stand as well.
Love that.
And that's just an idea of, standing for what you believe in. If you do that, you will invite others along. But I think that's just leading by example,
Yeah.
right? The other piece of it is if you wanted to teach other people how to do it, then just let them come along with you in the process of doing it. Meaning, like, just say, come along with me, or just do it and talk about it, right? Or express it, teach it in whatever way that you're a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And that gets into a whole debate about what is really teaching,
Right.
Whole philosophy behind that. But I think that's the step. Do it yourself, right? Perhaps even join the conversation that we're having about it, or any conversation from a community that they're intentionally going after life. And in the morning, set your intentions of what you want to create. And at the end of the day, look back and celebrate. It's an easy bookending of every day. How will you be a moment maker, and how were you a moment maker?
I love that. That's simple and easy to do right there.
Yeah.
Your hat, front row dads. Can you explain? You put on a couple events throughout the year. Can you explain what the hat means?
Yeah. So this is most ideas are best expressed in a story. So let me share one about my epic fail as a dad. I didn't start Front Row Dads because I was the best at it. I started it because I was the worst at it, probably. And what I mean by that is I had to really be honest with myself about 2 years ago with how much I was working and putting into my business and how much I wasn't committed to my family. And what I mean by that is not, if you would have asked me in my heart how committed I am to my family, I would have told you family first.
Right.
But if you would have looked at my calendar, you would have had to argue that I wasn't, because my calendar didn't reflect that value that I expressed with my words. And I remember I was at a party one time and somebody said, Jon, what do you do? And I said, oh, I'm a speaker and a coach and I run this charity. And I started in on the professional bio and I cut myself off. And I was like, I'm a dad and I'm a husband. And when I'm not doing that, I happen to do these other things. And when I answered that way, I was like, yeah, that's really who I am. That's actually really authentic. The problem is my schedule doesn't reflect that. So I went home and I sat down, I looked at my computer and I saw that I had a folder for everything on my computer, from taxes to the next charity event to the speaker training I was running and the speeches I was doing, but no family folder. I would spend hours preparing for a podcast interview or a TEDx speech or a event I was running, but where was I preparing for my family meetings? Or where have I written out a family mission statement? Did I know what my family values were? Was I going to family events and seminars? If this is literally my number one thing, how is it that I went to 6 events to help me become a better speaker, seminar leader, etc., but no family events?
Family, yeah.
I said, I've got to change that, right? And so I brought 30 of my friends together in Philadelphia in the fall of 2016, and we had a 3-day event, and it was great. And from there, it was so obvious that this was such a needed thing. Guys were hungry for this, and a specific type of guy that I was after. I'm in the space of these entrepreneurial men who are trying to do big things in the world with their businesses, and they also really want to be epic family men, and many of them arguably are. So we're looking for men that have wisdom, right? But that are also wise enough to know there's more to learn. And so we say we're after family men with businesses, not businessmen with families. Let me say that one more time because I think that's really important. We're
Yeah.
after family men with businesses, not businessmen with families. And that's a priority shift. It's a slight nuance to
Wow.
like, where do we really see our role in this world? Because I've never met a guy ever older down the road who's raised children that are older. And they've never said to me, you know what, John, if I could go back in time, I think I would have spent less time with my family and I would have earned extra money, would have
Right.
built a bigger business. But I've heard countless people say, looking back, I got lost in my business and I forgot about my family. They weren't the worst dads in the world. They wouldn't say they failed horribly,
Right.
but that would be the change they would make. And so that's why we started this dads group. So we have an online component, we have a podcast, Front Row Dads, we have the retreats now, and this is actually my full-time focus. I'm still doing keynote speaking and writing and all these things. I'm doing the charity, but Front Row Dads is my full-time focus now.
So it's expanded a lot since
Big time.
2016.
A lot. Yeah, it took over.
Wow.
I went from doing like 40 keynotes a year to probably I'll do 20 this year.
Really? And what about the event?
Yeah, the event. Well,
Can you talk about
we're recording
what's
this
that
in
like?
June.
Yeah.
And the event is in October, and we have 2 spots left. It's almost sold out.
Oh, wow.
So I'm just so blown away. In fact, my assistant called today and she's like, "We got to talk about Front Row Dads in the fall." And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Are you worried about attendance? Are you worried?" I'm like, "Am I worried about attendance?" I go, I forgot to tell you, we could celebrate. Like this thing's about to sell out. We're we're
Wow.
months away, and this thing is almost sold out.
What
I,
what what do people get from experiencing this? I'll try to get this up as soon as possible. See if any of the dads watching this want to sign up. What can they
yeah.
expect going to this event? Where's it going to be held?
Well, I could answer that for 2 different types of guys. One is the type
Okay.
of guy that goes to events, and then the other one is a guy that's never been to events. And for guys that go to events, I almost don't need to sell it because
Right.
they know what it's like to be in an immersion experience. And if you
Yeah.
value it, or you resonate with me, I'd say if you don't resonate with me, then there's no point in
Probably
explaining.
not a good event for you.
Yeah, it's you can you can bow out now.
Yeah.
But if you're the type of person who resonates with the things I've talked about and I've shared, then this type of event is a balance of, there's 3 things I'm trying to get done. I'm trying to, number 1, create a brotherhood. So I want to create space where guys that aren't the same, but have similar interests that can get together and talk about fatherhood. Because look, I have some friends of mine that are great friends. I mean, I watched UFC with Hal this weekend, right, at his house. But I probably am not going to sit down on the couch Saturday night watching UFC and then be like, guys, I gotta open up and pour out about my deepest like family challenges. And they're
Right.
like, dude, we just want to watch UFC tonight. So there's not always the moment with our friends that we get a chance to really just with permission, really open up and talk about this stuff. So there's a brotherhood that's formed there. That's one. Number 2 is that we want guys to share strategies. So we structure the event. So there's an amount of time where we're talking and sharing strategies. So you're literally talking 30 to 35 guys, all high performers, all very successful, arguably, and they're all sharing their best ideas. And then you walk away with 2, 3, 4, 5 amazing ideas from these incredible men. They're game changers.
Right.
And then there's another piece of this, which is I bring in guest experts. So last event I brought in Jay, who I talked about earlier. I brought in a guy named Jeff Sandifer, who started one of the fastest growing entrepreneurial schools for K through 12. I brought him in. We talked education. He's super successful businessman who is now helping education. And we just have great conversations. And I think the guys are creating that. So it's brotherhood, it's purpose, and it's strategy. And the purpose piece is just remembering why we do this, remembering that this is the most important. I mean, listen, we're talking 3 days out of an entire year. If somebody says family first and then has a hard time justifying 3 days out of their entire year, that's 1% to go away and to sharpen the axe. If we do it for our businesses, why wouldn't we do it for our families? That's what I want to help guys do. Because I know lots of guys that, man, they just, we all need accountability.
Yeah.
I know lots of guys that need accountability, no matter how good you are. Some of the most talented guys I know need a gym coach, need accountability somehow or another. And this is one of the ways to get it in the family space.
When you're talking about strategy, so it's strategy like how to be a better dad, business
Yeah, our
strategy as well,
topics are
or everything?
no, it's not business. We
No,
don't we feel that this group has lots of masterminds about business, and they get
so it's
they,
all family
it's family.
focused.
This is how to be a
That's
better
awesome.
husband or partner.
Wow.
This is how to be a great dad, and this is how to be a great family man. Every
Wow.
conversation that we have is geared towards that. Now, we might talk about money, but it's not we're not talking
It's a
business building,
mm,
strategies. We're
it's
talking about, like, if we're talking money, a lot of times, like, we had a call recently because we have an online component, so guys can become members if they don't want to come to the events or can't come to the events for, small monthly fee. They can become a member, and then they get
okay.
access to these calls with the guys. We do calls. We do structured calls where we teach, and then we do
Mhm.
Q&A, and then we also do a dad riff, which is just basically guys getting on the phone and just
Just chill.
talking, having good conversation. And guys can ask anything. I mean, we talk about sex, we talk about education, we talk about vaccinations, we talk about life insurance policies. We
Really?
can talk about any of that stuff because that's all important. You could argue that health is important, but look, I'm not running a health boot camp. We
Right.
might talk about how to get it involved or integrated into our family lives, but I'm not trying to be a health expert,
Right.
and I'm not trying to be a financial expert. We're trying to keep the conversation around family topics. But I'll tell you, a big one, man, is marriage. A big one, and most guys would argue that if you want to be a great dad, you got to get the relationship piece dialed in.
Really.
That affects so much of a great family situation, is the relationship piece. So we tend to bring on, like, this month, and as we record this 2 weeks from now, I'm bringing
Mhm.
in one of the top marriage guys in the country to run a private call with our group, and we're
Wow.
talking marriage.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, like I said earlier, I had no idea that it's grown into such an amazing thing. And the Front Row Dads is the only type of group organization event I've ever heard of that's like that specifically focused.
Yeah. And it's not even just for dads. We have a very specific guy we're after, right? High performing, entrepreneurial type
Right.
men.
You're right. Yep.
That guy is who we're after. It doesn't
Hmm.
mean that guys can't join that aren't like that, but we have dentists and
Yeah.
the different type of people, but they're entrepreneurial, right?
Right.
They're entrepreneurial, and I think that's what we want. We want guys that are interested in creating the future for themselves and their family.
I love that, man. I love that. Um, I will link all of everything that we've talked about. I'll put links in the description to the different events he has. And I guess I'm on your website now, right now. Everything is found on your website, correct?
Yeah, everything
Events.
is
Yeah.
at. I mean, you can get everything that I'm connected to at frontrowfactor.com. But if you wanted to go directly to the dad stuff, you can go to Front Row Dads. There's quite a few websites under the Front Row brand. We have frontrowfoundation.org, which is all the charity. We have Front Row on Campus, which is the college stuff. We have all sorts of different sites under the brand.
Cool.
But if you want the link to everything, frontrowfactor.com will get you there.
And they can play around on that.
Yep.
And awesome. Awesome. Well, John, man, thank you so much for carving some time out of your busy schedule to speak to my audience. And if you guys and girls like what John had to say, please comment below, like this video, ask questions, and I'll make sure you can see them. And yeah, John, thank you once again for taking some time and sharing your story here on the channel.
Thanks for having me, brother. This was a lot of fun. Appreciate you and what you're doing in the world, and so happy to see the success that you're creating and the family you're building, most importantly. That's really cool. Your wife and your kids are lucky to have you, Emeka. You have a heart of gold, man, and I know that you're out there working to serve people. And I have worked with you, and I would say that to anybody listening, if you have a teacher in your life, Emeka operates with 100% integrity, which is why I knew that we would get along great. Because when you say you're going to do something, you do it. You do it with heart and soul, and you're a humble and confident guy, which I think are the two things: confident enough to take action, and humble enough to know there's always something to learn. So I think that's a really wonderful thing you're doing, and I love how you're doing it. Right, that's the most important piece.
That's awesome. Not a better note to end on than that. Thank you so much, John. Till next time, everybody, I'm Emeka. This is John. We will speak to you all soon. Take care.